All right, before we get started, I would like to just say that Robin Williams is not here tonight because her daughter is a senior and playing her last home soccer game. And I thought that was real. She should be tonight. So did she. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on a matter that is not on our agenda tonight? All right, thank you. Next, moving on to the consent agenda. If there is a member of the committee who wishes one of these items to be removed from the agenda, that will be removed and discussed at its regular place in its own, on its own. Does anybody would like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Yeah.
I have a couple. A, B, well, BB and BD, finance stuff.
Capital B, small b, and
Yes.
capital B, small d.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Anyone else? Could we have a motion to approve the remaining items of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the remaining items of the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. I'd like to next take one item out of order so that Mr. McGinnis can talk to us about a new program he would like to start and then get to the soccer game.
Thank you. This is a part technically of my report, which starts on page 38. The reason why I asked the chair to agree to change the agenda is that it is the senior game for the girls' soccer team, and you'd expect the athletic director to want to be there. You'll see that at item 4 of my report, I reflect the fact that Sean McInnes and I introduce him to you. This is probably not a moment you can read the names going around, but I hope there'll be an opportunity for you to meet Sean personally. The report speaks for itself. We have a much more interesting website, which is much more informative than it used to be. You can actually find out how to get to games, which is very helpful, I find, certainly, because I was at Ipswich this afternoon watching the cross country for a while. Sean has established some baseline data in terms of participation, and that will be very helpful as we build the program. He has a survey in hand to gain people's perceptions of the program. And you'll see that he's taken a lot of steps to begin to expand particular opportunities for middle school in order to, first of all, give students the opportunity, but secondly, obviously, to kind of build the program through middle school and up to high school. I have been impressed with the number of people who seem to know him from our feeder programs and just around in the community. He's clearly been out and about a lot, very purposefully. You'll see towards the end of the report, at the end, the possibility of establishing a high school swimming team. I want to advise you this evening that it's my intention to do that. We have over 30 students who are interested in doing that. We have a venue at the Newburyport YMCA. Sean was initially thinking it might be a collaborative, cooperative program with another district, but we seem to have enough real swimmers who have swum for clubs who are interested in doing this. We are able to, through our estimates, to do this without any cost to the general fund. And I see no let or hindrance to our moving ahead with that. So I put this on the agenda because I thought it was very important to reflect the work that Sean has been doing and to give you an opportunity maybe to ask questions of him. My impression is that he is setting high expectations of students and coaches. that students are supporting one another, teams supporting one another, so it becomes a whole program, not a set of silos, which I think is very important. I was very impressed with the kind of spirit amongst the cross-country runners today. The girls were supporting the boys were supporting the girls. The young man who came in well last in the boys was clapped all the way, cheered on. I won't mention his name, though I can remember it because it was repeated so often. So it was a really good spirit. And I think a lot of that is because Sean is giving everybody some positive direction. So would you note that the intention to start a swimming program? And if you have questions, Sean is here to answer your difficult ones. Brian is saying it could just still be a co-op, depending on the numbers. I'm optimistic that we will have the numbers to do it, but if it has to be a co-op to start with, then that's fine by me.
Does any member of the committee have any questions for Mr. McGinnis? Jane?
I was just wondering, oh, I'm sorry.
I said Jane.
Good evening. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you as well.
No question, just a comment. I'm delighted to hear that we will have a swimming co-op. And knowing that at Latitudes in Salisbury, there is serious swimming instruction going on, coaching. And I would imagine a number of our students are part of that program. That's where they're training, basically.
Yep.
So kudos. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I think they're going to like it a lot.
Yeah, good.
Dick?
Thank you.
Hi. Nice meeting you as well.
Christopher and I talked last spring about the possibility of getting some rugby here at Triton, and I was wondering if that's something that could be on your radar screen.
You know, I think that's some of the feedback we're going to be looking for back from the students and the students' families as far as when we do a climate survey to see what the climate of the athletic environment is and what sports we would like to see kind of gauge some interest as far as going to a club level and trying to get some instructions here, maybe even do just a couple of clinics here and there to try to introduce the sport. But that is one of the sports I know that is near and dear to his heart, so I know it's going to be on our survey with some other middle school sports as well as high school sports. Again, with our climate survey, we'll capture that information.
Okay, great.
Does anyone have any other questions around the swim team? Dina?
I do. Nice to see you again.
Nice meeting you again.
How did I know that you had a meeting yesterday to gauge interest. Did you have a lot of students show up?
I'm actually proud to say we had 33 students that officially made it into the office to sign. The line actually went down the stairs at the athletic office, and some students had to leave to go to their varsity sports. I received multiple emails today, and I'm working with a young woman that's trying to help spearhead this opportunity from Triton. I'm very proud of that's a junior that has really taken this under her wing, and she has another 4 to 5 names as well of high school students.
I just have, you know me and policy. I am a little concerned that the district-wide email went out on October 3rd, and our meeting is tonight. And according to our policy, and I'm quoting from Athletic and Co-Curricular Policy, File JJ 1024, the creation or disbanding of teams and/or organizations shall be within the authority of the school committee following a recommendation by the superintendent. Farther down it says, proposals for new athletic and/or co-curricular activities will be presented for approval to the school committee before initiating the activity. Now, I might be splitting hairs here. I know you were just investigating that, but I think that we should have been informed prior to that because
that should certainly be addressed to the superintendent.
Absolutely.
And not
Absolutely.
Mr. McInnes. Certainly, looking at this, what we are doing is entirely in line with policy, and maybe we need to look at that policy.
I think, well, I would have at least appreciated being informed that this was even being looked at before that district-wide email went out. I was asked by a parent, it happens to be a parent of a choice student, by the way, when this was coming up, and I felt stupid not knowing anything about it.
I apologize for that. there is that quote, there's a tide in the affairs of man which if taken at the flood leads on to a fortune. This is a swimming matter, and the window of opportunity to establish the team was very, 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 very short. Otherwise, it would have lost a year. So I take responsibility for that, and I apologize to the committee.
Thank you.
Can you just clarify the grades that this will be part of?
Yep, we will actually be, once, if it's approved, we will be applying for the waiver for middle school, and that's complete middle school, to start to build that foundation and to try to stand alone on our own as far as trying to limit the co-op opportunities that we're looking for. So we're looking to go 7 through 12 in year 1, and then we'll look at that waiver year after year. But the way how the MIA waivers work is once your waiver is received for that age group, they will continue. So if a 7th grader receives a waiver this year, they will automatically be considered in for next year. But if we want any new 7th graders the year after, which we're hoping we won't need to, we would have to reapply. Yep.
Any other questions regarding the swim team possibility?
If it pleases the committee, I'm recommending the establishment of a high school swimming team.
Would you like us to take a vote on that?
I think that the secretary to the committee has indicated that that would be appropriate.
Could we have a motion to approve the possible formation of a Triton swim team?
I'll make that motion.
A second, please? Any discussion, any further discussion on the possibility of a Triton swim team? All those in favor? Opposed?
I'll abstain purely on protocol.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question just on that issue. Should the school committee take any action with regard to the suggestion of these surveys that may be going out for other sports? Or I don't want to run into this issue again about emails going out and not.
I don't think in the case of a survey, I'm not sure that needs to be done, but thank you for asking. Next order of business will be to nominate the official delegate to the MASC annual business meeting which will be held during the MASC-MASS conference on Friday, November 8th in Hyannis. Is there anyone who will be attending that meeting who would like to be the Triton delegate to that business meeting? Okay. We draw the short straw. Okay, who's going?
On Wednesday, right? Is that the Wednesday?
No, the
I won't be there till Friday.
the meeting's on Friday. Mm-hmm.
Would anybody like to do that? We will be very helpful. We will discuss the items beforehand, and the delegate, would know what the feeling of the committee was prior to going into that meeting.
Oh, well, I think I'm going. I think I signed up for Friday. I think that's it. I'm going one day. I think it's Friday.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I forget. But I'll do it.
So we'll tentatively
Yes.
nominate.
Did it before. You just sit there.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Then could we have a nomination for someone to be the delegate?
I make what am I doing? I'm nominating Suzanne Densmore to be our delegate representative
Could we have a
at
second?
MASC.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Oh, I remember last time. I think you need to send me what you want me to vote.
We
on.
will. I just said
Yeah.
that, but prior to that, we will go over the questions.
We're going to do
and-
it in the meeting, or we're going to do it.
We've talked about it in the meeting in the past.
Okay.
We don't have to, but we certainly could.
Okay. I think it'd be better in the meeting. That way, I'll just
Yeah.
check off. Okay.
Mhm. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is to appoint a representative to the Whittier Regional Vocation. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you do need to name an alternate too.
Oh, goodness. Thank you very much. Anybody want to be the alternate?
I was going to nominate you.
I'm not going to be there otherwise.
I know you. I know. Linda,
I'll nominate Linda.
okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Quick. Okay, thank you, Linda. We just have to keep Suzanne healthy.
Feels so good.
Are we going to go back to the agenda items that were skipped over?
In the order.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm not used to this consent agenda.
That's okay.
I apologize.
Anyway, so now we're going to appoint a representative to the Whittier Regional Vocational Technical High School. This is an appointment to finish out a term that ends in March 2014. And Joanna True expressed interest in being the Whittier representative. I don't think she's here tonight, is she? No? All right, well, Joanna said that she would be willing to serve. She's very interested in serving. She has twins who attend Whittier. So we need to take a vote from the Newbury representatives on whether or not they would like to approve Joanna True as the Whittier member to the school committee.
I'll nominate Joanna True as the Newbury representative to the Whittier Vocational Technical High School.
And I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. All right, next we have a student representative report. Courtney.
Hi. So last Friday we had a half day and we had an anti-bullying assembly, and the man Josh Gunderson, he discussed digital bullying and really connected with the audience. I unfortunately wasn't there because I had a college tour, but apparently it was really great. You know, he put on a very entertaining but also a connecting performance that really helped kids to understand the harmful effects of bullying in not only the digital world but in real life. As well, on last Friday, there were 47 seniors this year that received the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship, and that's ultimately free tuition to a state school in Massachusetts. And there will be an awards recognition ceremony in the library on October 17th in the morning. On last Monday, there were progress reports issued during the advisory period. And Tuesday, we had a college fair, and those are going to be happening every Tuesday in the month of October from 8 to 9. Tomorrow, there's going to be a marine bio field trip, and they're going deep sea fishing, and that's going to be really fun for them. And also tomorrow night, there's a open house / curriculum night from 6:30 to 8 p.m., and there are a lot of student volunteers who are willing to take parents around, show them where their students' classes might be. So it's really nice that the kids that are getting involved are helping on the open house and showing parents what they need to see. This coming Friday at the home football game, Student Council is hosting the VIP night, and there are 4 lucky winners that are receiving a catered dinner from the Starboard Galley. So that's going to be really fun. I'm running that. Next Monday, we don't have school, and next Wednesday, juniors and some sophomores will take the PSATs. On October 22nd, seniors are getting cap and gown measurements. That's crazy. So soon. On the 26th, it is Triton is Haunted. On November 1st, we have a half day. And on November 4th, the homecoming food drive will begin, as well as second quarter. I'm astonished that it went by so fast. Student council members have been doing the morning announcements this morning for the past few weeks. And this week I'm doing it, and it isn't really as easy as it might seem. So it's really nice just that the student council members are getting involved and really doing their job and helping to run the school. And also there are TVs in the cafeteria that are up and running during breakfast and all 3 lunches with the daily announcements. So that's also another opportunity for people to see what's happening in the school, as well as like reminders for when their meetings are, and congratulations on sports teams for their success, or really whatever. So as of Monday and yesterday, our sports, we're doing pretty well. Boys cross country are 0-7. Girls are 3-4. Field hockey is 5-5-2. Football is 3-1. Golf is 8-1. They're doing fantastic. Boys soccer is 6-3-1. And girls soccer is 4-4-2. And like we mentioned earlier, Mrs. Williams is at Madison senior night game in the stadium. So we're wishing them the best of luck. And for the arts, marching band has their MICA finals on October 27th. And this past weekend, they placed second and won best music in their division at the NESBA competition.
Does anyone have any questions for Courtney? Mary?
I just have a comment. I really like the idea of having the sports stats and report on the arts
Okay.
at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to try that new this year.
Can I make one comment? It's unfortunate, Courtney, that you weren't able to go to that anti-bullying assembly. I went to the one that they did for the middle school.
Okay.
And he was fabulous.
Yeah, that's what
Absolutely
everybody
fabulous.
said.
And I said to Ms. Finn and Mr. McRae afterwards that the kids were so engaged. At times you could hear a pin drop in that auditorium. I mean, he was fabulous. And I think Paul and Dick, I think I saw both of you guys there too. I thought it was great.
And the golf team won the Cape Ann League.
Yep.
So congratulations to them. Thank you very much, Courtney.
Thank you.
Moving on to reports and deliberations. MASC Business Report. Dina?
We last met on September 19th, and Christine Lynch was there. Most of the discussion was on how the past budgets had gone this past year, and a lot of emphasis on some districts that were looking for more aid from the state, given their, the fluctuations that some districts saw in their finances. She had mentioned there was a big discussion about the education collaboratives. Some regional districts are in more than one, and there was a big conversation about, which we've discussed here before, the pros and cons and why maybe just going with one might be a better idea. She went over some of the CIC grants, which I will be honest, I didn't really follow well because that doesn't really affect us that much, does it, Brian? Maybe you can explain more of what those are.
They're Community Innovation Challenge grants in its efforts towards regionalization, and there are, as a region, we can qualify, even though we're already regionalized as a school. They're pretty prescriptive. It's not like entitlement grants, and so, I mean, there was Manchester Essex that built and established an in-district language-based program because they are right next door to Landmark School. So they were able to develop a program in-district that kept those students in-district rather than sending them out. So I went to a workshop, I have the materials, we're looking at it. It's not a perfect fit, but I think...
Because it is more for looking into regionalizing,
I mean,
right?
it's
Isn't
wide
that
open. It could be water treatment plants between two cities.
But isn't that basically what it's used for right now?
It's all regionalizing.
Okay.
Anything.
Okay, so
whatever we're regionalizing, from education to public utilities to everything. So,
thank you. The other thing that we as we always do at every meeting, we kind of go over some of the bills that might be coming up. A lot of these aren't happening until later in the month, but they're on school funding, regional district planning committees, bonus aid, regional transportation reimbursement, teacher compensation in regional schools, and fees for regional school transportation. And our next meeting is October 17th. And Representatives Turner and Ferguson will likely be there. And as I've mentioned many times before, Representative Turner is a huge supporter of regional schools, districts, and really knows his stuff. And he's always full of information. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Dina.
Could I just add a footnote to that, since there's been a reference to legislation proposed in front of the House? There are several members of the General Court who are pressing legislation to raise the school leaving age to the age of 18. And while that may be absolutely fine in principle, there is absolutely no point in passing that legislation unless districts are provided with the resources to develop the kind of programs which are going to engage the students who are currently dropping out of school. And so, yes, it's something that we should try to do, but without the resources to create the kind of programming and staff support to engage those students in high school, it will fail.
Thank you. Since we're sort of talking about MASC, we need to go back to the delegate situation, our representative to the business meeting. Suzanne had the wrong day,
I signed up for Thursday.
so she won't be there Friday. Yeah.
So does
meant
that bump
Thursday.
Linda up?
No, sorry.
Does that bump Linda up?
Well, I don't know. I don't think that, not unless Linda wants to be bumped up.
You have later in the agenda a proposal of correspondence to the MASC on the policy matter. It would be unfortunate if they were to bring that in front of their committee and not have anybody from Triton to speak to it.
Question, please.
Oh, I thought you were volunteering. Go ahead.
Well, my husband will have another comment. Do you never learn anything, Jane? So usually how late? If nobody is willing or interested, I guess I will drive down by myself and stay late and battle Friday night traffic.
Does that mean you're volunteering?
Yes.
Okay. Then we need to nominate Jane as our representative to the MASC business meeting.
Make a motion to nominate Jane as the MESC rep.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Jane, I just have the schedule here. It's at 3:30, the MASC Delegate Assembly. That's when it is, just to let you know.
I know.
All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay. Thank you. Now, moving on to the district MCAS scores, student growth and accountability data. Mr. Farmer.
Thank you. I'd like to provide some contextual information before we look at the actual data, and there should be 4 sheets of paper in front of you. One of them headed District Demographic Trends, which is a graph. Another distribution of students with disabilities by severity, which is a spreadsheet. And then there are 2 pages which are a mixture of spreadsheet and graph, headed District MCAS Trends by grade, and it's Math and ELA Proficiency Plus 2013.
Yep.
Do you just going to pause to check that you have those? Can we start with? They're around the table. Yeah. Can we start with the district demographic trends? I think if we're going to look at results, and by the way, I'm grateful for all the principals are here this evening. We take collective responsibility for student progress. Thank you for coming. District demographic trends, I think this is interesting because it shows you the growth in the percentage of students from low-income families across the district, and it shows you the increase in students with disabilities. The English language learners are flat, and that's partly because the Chief Academic Officer has been working very rigorously to ensure that students who are in the program should be in the program. But I think the graph speaks for itself in terms of the proportion of low-income students from low-income families and students with disabilities. If you look at the sheet headed distribution of students with disabilities by severity, which looks like that, it's a spreadsheet. This spreadsheet divides the disabilities up into what you might regard most severe and less severe. And you'll see from here that as a percentage of enrollment, nearly 6% of our students could be regarded as having severe disabilities, and nearly 8% having less severe disabilities. I'm drawing your attention to this against the state goal that 100% of students will be proficient by 2017. If we have nearly 6% of students with severe disabilities, then that doesn't really appear to be a very kind of reasonable objective. the spreadsheets and the graphs that show trends by grade compare Triton's percentage of students who are proficient plus. I'm looking at the ELA one first, against neighboring districts that you might regard as similar, but I've included Ipswich and Newburyport simply because they are very local. I don't regard them as being necessarily similar to this district. And if you look at the graph below, you'll see there's an almost universal plunge from grade 3 to grade 4 ELA. Grade 3 ELA is essentially a reading assessment, while fourth grade is a full-blown ELA assessment. And if you were to look at districts across the state, for the most part, you will see that drop between grade 3 and grade 4. So as you look at our own results, I hope you'll bear in mind that is a general pattern. Beyond that, if you look at the top, the areas which are shaded in blue show the middle school grades in each of the districts. If you track those down, you'll see that typically at the age of transition from either 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, there is a drop in the assessed level of achievement of students. And again, that is a very typical picture across the state. What's interesting is that the ELA graph is on the whole, it looks fairly consistent. If you look at the next graph, it looks very different. Again, you have the plunge at grade 4. After that, the picture looks a little bit crazy. But again, if you look at the drops in assessed achievement against the points at which students move from elementary school to middle school, again, it's not universal. There are some districts that kind of buck the trend, but on the whole, that transition has an impact. And I'll remind you that nobody has been able to provide a decent explanation around the middle school results. What we do know, there are years of personal confusion, students developing their identity, students developing biologically very, very quickly. And at the same time, we have an expectation that they're going to move from concrete to abstract thinking. And it's that kind of mix of things going on together that I think provides a particular challenge for middle schools and middle school teachers. That doesn't mean to say that we should simply say, well, that's an excuse, but certainly I think it's at least a partial explanation for some of the figures that you've got here. I'm going to stop there before I move on to the detailed data. Does the committee have any questions, comments around this contextual information?
Jane?
And Mr. Farmer, maybe you could remind us all that during those middle school years, neurologically, the brain is also at rest. So it's not the best time in the world to be testing our students who are not only going through their emotional, psychological, but the brain's kind of at rest developmentally.
Well, certainly the frontal lobe is not always kind of getting those electrical connections that makes them impulsive. Yeah. Yes. Shall I go on? Can I go back to Annex 7, which was circulated with the agenda? My comment is that on the whole, these results are fairly flat. There are one or two areas. I've never been able to get out of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education a real answer to the question, how much progress do we need to see for it to be statistically significant? 1%, 2% is kind of within the margin of the variability. due to incidental matters, but grade 3 ELA has a 5 percentage points increase in Proficiency Plus. Grade 3 Math, 18%. Grade 5 Math, that's an 8% increase. But we do have some slightly worrying decreases at grade 6 Math, down 8. And very perplexing, grade 8 Science and Technology, down 17. But across the piece, the results on the whole are fairly flat. I'm looking at this sheet here with and you can see how things have moved from 2008. What is encouraging is on the whole we are significantly better than the state average. If you go over the page, there's a spreadsheet there that sets out the distribution of student growth percentiles. And I'll remind you that a student growth percentile for each student compares its growth over the year against students with a similar profile in MCAS the previous year. We have one student, I think, at Salisbury who scored 93% this year, and the principal got a very nice message from the family saying how pleased they were with, is it Tony, the teaching that had gone there. It's a huge improvement. Our district development plan target is to reach and maintain a median student growth percentile of 55, and you'll see that this year that has been achieved. ELA is 56, and Math is 55. Now, just to put that in context, moderate growth, as described by the DSE, is 40 to 60. So that means that this growth is in the kind of upper quartile of what they would regard as being typical growth. If you go over the page again, the MCAS scores are intended to assess assessed achievement. Student growth percentiles are about student growth. And you have here, exceptionally for this report, details by subject and school and grade, 2010 to 2013. Right-hand column shows you the 3-year mean. If it's green, it means it's in the moderate growth. If it's blue, it means it's in high growth. If it's yellow, it means very high growth. And if it's in a kind of pinkish color, low growth. You'll see if we'll take a 3-year mean, because no class 1 year to the next is the same, and particularly in Salisbury probably doesn't contain the same students because of the amount of transition in and out. If you look at the 3-year mean, they're all in the green, and 3 of them are in the blue, which means that taking a mean over a 3-year period, we're doing as well as we might expect, and in some cases doing better than that. It's particularly encouraging that you can see there are 3 blocks here marked in yellow, which means very high growth. Our trick is to work out quite what's going on, where there's very high growth, and duplicating that over the district as a whole. One of the interesting things that we've seen this year, to reference a particular school, is Pine Grove 5th grade. They started using a supplementary program called Go Math, and the teachers are finding it very, very valuable supplementary material, and we're introducing that into all the schools now, so that all the schools can benefit from that. Some of the things I want to say around the MCAS scores translate into the next annex. And in the next annex, on page 33, as part of the district at a glance, I've included a spreadsheet that includes all the North Shore districts together with the River Valley Charter School to reflect their PPI, which is defined on the previous page. It's a mixture of at least four indicators. All students, high needs are high needs students. That is a category that's been introduced this year, and it's kind of an aggregate of students from low-income families, students with disabilities, and English language learners. And so you've got the PPI for all high needs, and the gap between all and high. And it's that gap that the state is encouraging us, but not resourcing us, to close. I've also included the percentage of high needs students, and you'll see there's some marked differences there. Triton, Amesbury, Beverly, Saugus are all over 30. Some are much smaller. Then you have the student growth percentiles. Sorry, the titles for these didn't transfer across. So as you go across where it says ELA and math, those are student growth percentiles. And I've shown the ones that meet the target that we set ourselves. And okay, in some cases there's just a percentage point, but Triton, Andover, Beverly, Masco, which of course is a 712 district and therefore rather different from us, and North Andover are the only districts that have actually hit 55 median student growth percentile in both subjects. And then I've added spending per pupil because that is not entirely irrelevant, and you'll see that we're about the median level along with Saugus in terms of spending at nearly 12,400 by comparison with Hamilton Wenham at 14,600, Manchester Essex at 13,274, Newburyport 13,369. When you look at those figures, you need to ask yourself, what are those additional dollars being spent on that are helping students to be successful? Overall, the MCAS position looks to be a little bit flat, but there's some good points there. Student growth percentile looks satisfactory. And then if you look at the district at a glance, the first page, everything in dark blue represents a positive development. Now, some of these positive developments are not entirely under our control, because if you look at the enrollment data, our enrollment is going down gently as it is across most of the state. So you expect to see pupil-teacher ratios, class sizes increasing. However, in your budget last year, you did take some steps to ensure that we did keep class sizes down to a reasonable level. The technology data, which is all shown as blue, is under inspection because our own data doesn't jive with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education data. Ours is worse than the DSE data, so question mark about that. The high needs data has no coloring because it's a new piece of data this year. School choice is better, outward, and in fact, Patricia, you were mentioning today that our school choice data from Ipswich in particular is school choice out is going down, half of what we had. So school choice out is improved, school choice in has improved, numbers of students at the charter school has improved, number of homeschool children has gone down. And in my view, that suggests increasing confidence in your schools. In terms of outcomes, you know that we don't have any better data than we have here. 2011-12, our four-year graduation rate hit 90% for the first time. Our graduation rate and still in school rate has gone up. College attendance has gone up. This particular year, AP scores qualifying for college credit has gone down a little. MCAS scores, on the whole, a preponderance of blue there. As I indicated earlier, some reductions. Looking at the overall accountability status, we're level 2 across the piece. Last year, the middle school was level 1. I believe that was a function of the introduction of the new formula, and no more than that. If you look at page 32, where there's a listing of different level schools, the only school in the area, the only district, is the Whittier Vocational High School. In my view, Whittier is a selective school. It clearly does have students from low-income families. It does have students from with disabilities, but not of the kind that we support. And if you look at other level 2 districts, and this is partly because the level of a district is determined by the lowest level school in the district. That Lexington, Lincoln, Sudbury, Newton, and Wellesley are level 2 districts. So I don't think we need to be overly dismayed. We in fact are very consistent across the piece. Just to explain one further thing, on page 33, bottom right-hand corner, there's a little statistics there that shows the very high statistical correlation between proportion of high-need students and the strength of the PPIs in the various districts. That again is not an excuse; it's an explanation. So that's the picture at the moment. As you'd expect, the schools have their individual MCAS data. They are analysing the data to identify those parts of the test that we didn't do particularly well on. I don't think there are any surprises. Certainly, extended response questions seems to be an Achilles heel in most districts, and maybe the Common Core English Language Arts will help deal with some of that. I'm going to stop there. Between us, the principals are here. If you have particular questions, we'll do our best to answer them.
Does any member of the committee have any questions for Mr. Farmer?
Have you investigated in the cost per pupil what some of the other schools are spending the extra money on, or investigate? Did you have any ideas or
No.
inkling?
If the committee is interested, I can produce a profile of those districts.
I'm just curious because when you mentioned it, we don't know, but some of those tests are slightly higher.
Well, if you think about our budget discussions and the things that we don't fund, and then you have to imagine how we would run if we were able to spend that additional money in any one year. I'm not sure what our request is. It's usually about $1.5 million more than the approved budget. And if you divide that by 2,800 students, you get a sense of the pupil gap.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Well, I think, I feel a little bit disappointed, but I feel disappointed for the kids and the teachers because I know everybody's working not only hard but smart. And this really speaks to the fact that we have to continue to keep class sizes down. This year they're looking pretty good. Actually, they're looking excellent in some situations. So it's just very, very important that we give our educators all the support and professional development that they need and keep the class sizes small so they can do what they need to do to help and educate our children.
All right, thank you, Jane. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Moving on.
Thank the principals again for being here. They also serve only stand and wait.
District dashboard.
Well, I think I've taken you through that in part. You'll recall that the intention, we would take off the back page. The intention is really to give people a kind of snapshot of the district in terms of inputs and in terms of outputs. One of these days we'll find a way to describe the black box, which is the curriculum and the teachers and all the different experiences that children have that result, produce the outputs. But at the moment, we've focused on inputs and outputs. Last year, we integrated this into the annual report, which I will bring to you in draft form at your next meeting, and it'll be there again on that occasion.
Any questions on that? No? Thank you. District Development Plan targets.
This is an oral report because we don't have any. Committee Member Sullivan asked for these at the last meeting, and I want to explain why. And in fact, Suzanne Densmore partly gave the answer at the meeting with the MASC. When you're thinking about getting from here to there, the early part of the journey is usually harder than the latter part of the journey. And the DSE likes to take starting point and finishing point and join the two up as a straight line. And we know that if we're in development, getting the last bit is harder than getting the earlier bits, which I think was the point that Suzanne was making to Mike Gilbert about a logarithmic curve rather than a linear curve. And while we could do the math and simply divide the gap between the number of years and put a figure in, realistically, I don't know that they're relevant in terms of everybody's experience of managing change. So we would rather say, here's our starting point, there's our target, and each year recalibrate what we need to do to get to the target. And that's the approach we're going to be taking, with the development plan generally. So I hope you'll give us a little latitude that rather than simply populate the spreadsheet with figures that may be arithmetically in a linear way interesting, but are probably not going to be realistic in terms of getting to a target.
Can I ask this question in another way then? Who determines what those targets should be? Is it DESE that does, or is it us looking at how our students are doing and how that progression should be going?
The targets were established by the committee on my recommendation. I mean, we had a discussion about what would be reasonable. I explained earlier on, and I think hopefully demonstrated why 100% is not really realistic. It just isn't. And so we've typically got 90%. Is that right? 90% targets. Because the span of the development plan is shorter than the state's development plan. We're going through to 16 now, and they're going to 17. So the figures don't totally align.
It still makes it difficult for me to understand where we are, how we're progressing, if I don't know what that endpoint is supposed to be. I understand that there's going to be, ups and downs with this, because that's just the nature of education, I think.
Kim has been reviewing that data, and what you have is for MCAS ELA 2012, we've put 2013 in, and then we've got a 90% for 2015. We've now got to fill the next gap, and maybe at your next meeting or before the next meeting, we can circulate that spreadsheet again so that you can see how we've now filled that in.
Well, you're talking about the graph that we had from last time?
Correct. I think that the MCAS, the ELA MCAS at the bottom was not in on that one.
Right. Okay,
we've now filled that.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And so each year we can kind of.
Do we know what the graduation rate though was in 2013?
No, the graduation rates are published way after the relevant year. And to be consistent, we're using Department of Elementary and Secondary Education data, so we don't want to we want to use one source of data for the,
That makes sense to me.
excuse me.
Does anyone else have any questions on the district develop?
I
Okay.
just so I'm clear on the demographics, and I know, you know, it's obviously from this chart, it's increasing in terms of low income and disabilities and English language learners. How much of an impact does that play if we go from 19.4 to 22.9 in terms of NCAP scores being proficient, below average, above average? Are these students that are categorized in these particular 3 demographic sections, are they lower performers, or are they proficient performers, or are they high performers?
You were talking about these
The
demographic
district,
subgroups?
yeah, right.
Yes. I mean, typically, students from low-income families don't achieve as much as students from better-off families. There was a reference in the press just the other day, another report saying that the students from low-income families who are not achieving at grade level by the age of 7 are probably not going to catch up.
But these are our demographics, though, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess then my question is how are these demographics impacting? I mean, I know that in general you could create that pot and say, well, you know, because they're in this group, they're not going to perform. But is that in actuality, is that true? I mean, are they all not performing because they're in these demographic groups?
If Jim Montanari was here, he would remind us that low income is a big bucket, and within that, you've got families that have become recently into financial difficulty, but are still fully functioning as a family, and then we have generational unemployment, and that tends to be associated with behaviours which may be antisocial and certainly not supportive of children's education. We're currently dealing with 3 youngsters who are at Newbury, who have been essentially abandoned by their family. And so when we talk about low income, there's a range of issues amongst those families. But in general, children are not ready for school. Their language is less developed. Their general experience and prior knowledge is less. Their socialization is more problematic. They have models of behavior which don't sit well with our expectations of school. And they provide a real challenge. Now, can those challenges be met? Absolutely, they can. But it needs a lot of skill and a lot of staffing to achieve that.
Mm-hmm. I was just wondering are we doing a better job with that group, with these groups in terms of achievement? That's basically what I'm trying to find.
I mean, we don't have a statistical department. One could, with the data, look at every individual child and look at their longitudinal development over time, and try to identify points in their lives where things went wrong, but we don't have the capacity to examine it at different level. Kim, you've been in the middle of this. Do you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say there is a lot of support at the elementary school level with students, and as well as the Century 21 grant has a lot of wonderful programs that Carla runs that is great, and it gives students a lot of experience that they might not have had. So, and we've been tracking a lot of data as far as the kids' participation in those particular after-school programs, and they also have a lot of academic support programs after school. So we've been tracking the data of those young children to see if it does make a difference, and our data is great, and she's gotten a lot of recognition from the state because her programs are, not her programs, but the district's programs are working, and they really are addressing some of those issues that we see prominent with children from low-income families. So I feel that we are developing a really strong program, and we are monitoring the kids very closely to make sure that we have a very high enriched early literacy development years for them, so that we catch them before they fall and they don't get that kind of 7-year-old.
That's great. I just want to point out that we're now back on the agenda. We've gone back 2 places on the agenda. So I would like people to have an opportunity to say what they wanted to say. But, for example, if that had been asked when we were on that topic, Mr. Montanari would have still been here, and he might have been able to address the question. So if there are other questions on, well, Linda and you both.
Oh, go ahead, Linda. I didn't see.
No, I want people to be able to ask their questions, but that's why Mr. Montanari isn't here, to be able to fill in more detail on that.
But Dick, speaking to your comment, you know, if we all could remember and the public could remember, and that, you know, MCAT, these tests are administered usually in 2-day blocks. And speaking to children who are in less than optimum situations, depending, the probability that these children will enter school at 8:10 in the morning and be ready to do their very best on a challenging exam is risky. And so, you know, we talk about these things. It's really a snapshot in the life of these 2 or 3 hours in these kids' lives. And I would say we work miracles. This district, and probably, you know, many other school districts work miracles, but it just speaks to how insidious poverty is and what it does to our children.
Linda?
Are people looking at individual MCAS scores to see how well a child did and trying to help that child to do better the following MCAS?
They look at a variety of data, not just MCAS. They look at their writing, their reading, but they definitely look at their MCAS results as well. That is, I can honestly say, if you go to any data meetings at any of the schools, they are heavy into data and following that, and hopefully tracking what's happening. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Goals of the superintendent for 2013-2014.
Thank you. Again, you have an additional paper which looks like the one in your packet but doesn't have a number on it. Over the course of the weekend, a member of the committee drew my attention to the fact that the committee has discussed school climate and district climate on more than one occasion. My own view is that over the last 3 years it's improved. At the district level, certainly the new leadership in the high school and the middle school has made a lot of difference there. I think that we're beginning to act much more like a coherent, cohesive pre-K through 12 district. And that in general, when I go round and say, how's it going? I know people want to please me. But on the other hand, I think people are genuinely saying this year that school has started well. My other thought is that the things that school culture affects student performance, but it's what goes on in classrooms on a day-to-day basis and the leadership of the school that has the biggest impact on student achievement. Having said that, you'll find on the last page there is now a goal, alternative goal 5, which is alternative to the original goal 5 student learning goal, and this suggests that we might develop some baseline data on school and district climate and then prepare a response. Were we to do this, we would need to develop and administer a survey. I would expect that to include staff, families, and students. I've got grade 5 here. There are some who say you can start with students at grade 3. Review the data with and gain input input from the various stakeholders, prepare a draft response for consultation with interested parties, consult, and then prepare proposals for consultation with interested parties. You should know that the state intends to re-administer the TELMAS survey that it administered 2 years ago in January or February of this year. The limitations of that survey is that it's anonymous and entirely voluntary. You've got no control over sample. In fact, if somebody wants to answer it multiple times, they can answer it multiple times, while any survey that we undertook would need to be anonymous. We can ask data about grade level and so on that helps to focus it, and I think we can prevent multiple responses. So this is a response to that suggestion. It's for the committee to determine whether this goal 5 has more merit than the previous goal 5. I have listed at the bottom of the page here the list of key issues that we're going to be dealing with this year, and as I hope that as you consider the goals, you will consider them in the context of the weight of work that we are going to have to get through during the course of this year, in addition to all the unforeseen things that happen on a day-by-day basis that prevent administrators from doing what they set out to do on any particular day or sometimes any particular hour.
Just for clarification, so you would like us to determine which of the two goal number 5s
I think it's for the committee to
decide,
to
and then to approve
yes.
the goals as a whole.
I mean, to be fair, I will be dealing with goal 5 anyway. If you take it off, it will still need to be done for the reasons explained here, that this was a goal this year, it was completed, but I'm not satisfied that the data that was generated in the first year of the new evaluation system is valid.
Does anyone have any questions or suggestions, comments on any of the 5 goals? Or 6 goals? 5A, 5B? Dina?
Mr. Farmer, I appreciate you adding the 5th goal because I do think that that is an important one. And I think you have, as you just indicated, you will be dealing with the other number 5 anyway, correct?
Correct.
So I would recommend that we include the new number 5 as well.
Eliminate the first 5 and include the second 5. Does anyone else have any questions, suggestions? Suzanne?
I guess on page 3, goal 4. I guess I just don't understand. If you just clarify, like the bullet points, like the 7 to 12 program managers, like that's what you want to implement. Is that? I just remind me what this is all about. I just feel stupid.
After I withdrew the proposal to merge the middle and the high school, there was subsequently a discussion in the committee about ways in which we could improve transitions outside of merging the 2 schools. And what you have here is a list of some of those items.
Okay, so that's not comprehensive. This was just plucked. Is this what you're focusing on, or is this just something?
It's something that you by vote want me to do this year. Yeah, I'm going to need your help because some of these are going to be matters for negotiation.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay.
But I, for example, am preparing draft job descriptions for 712 program coordinators.
Okay, that clarifies my question. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on any of the goals?
Well, I should say that I agree with Dina about the 5th goal.
Okay. Mary, you? Okay. Anyone else? Suzanne?
I just want to say this makes it so much more clear than from last year with the indicators, and I really appreciate this. It really, just looking at this document here and going through that and aligning them with what you wrote, it's just a whole sigh of relief for me. I think it is.
Mr. Gilbert, as you know, I don't always agree with him, but his advice is very helpful.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So shall we take a vote on which number 5 we would like to include first?
We could just amend it.
Hmm?
We could just say as amended.
Well, but we need to. We didn't make any motion yet.
To approve the amendment.
We need
first.
to, we need to make a motion, and then we need to make an amendment. Dick?
I just want to be sure I'm clear. So, Christopher, you're going to be doing the original Goal 5 anyways, as part
Yes.
of, okay. So that would just be part of.
Like
your-
all the rest of it, it's stuff that gets
Right,
done.
okay. So then the question is, then we want to add the second 5. Now, do we do it as a sub 5, or just we call
Well-
it 5, or,
We would need a motion to approve Mr. Farmer's 5 goals,
okay,
and that would be the original 5. And then the amended
okay.
motion would be to do the second goal 5. So first, we need a motion to approve Mr. Farmer's 5 goals for 2013, 2014.
I'll make a motion to approve Mr. Farmer's goals for 2013, 2014.
I'll second.
Discussion. So we'd like to make an amendment to the motion.
I would like to amend the goals to include the new number 5.
I'll second that motion.
So now we have a motion to amend the original 5 to include the second number 5. Okay, we have a motion to do that. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the amended 5 goals? Thank you very much.
Could I just make one observation in the context of your discussion with Mr. Gilbert the other day? I think you were given the impression that these goals are absolutely critical. I could get these goals absolutely right and make a total pixie of the rest of the job.
That was my point. Remember that? That was my point.
And I do encourage you that rubric and just the day-to-day job is just as important as doing this.
Suzanne is vindicated.
Go off.
Okay, the report of the superintendent of schools.
Thank you. You've got my schedule there. In addition to athletics, I spent some time in Ipswich with the cross-country people today, and I did stop by the girls' JV varsity on the way back. The one thing I do want to draw your attention to is the Superintendent's Invitation Conference. I have put a report round the table, headed District Administration Leadership Institute. Given the time and the rest of the agenda, I don't propose to go through it. But if committee members are interested to have some discussion around that report, certainly you might want to put it on the next agenda. It was certainly the most rewarding conference I've been to for a long time. I haven't been to the American Association of School Administrators conference now, I think, for nearly 12 years because the quality is so uneven. This was very, very high quality professional development with a relatively small number of superintendents. And I'm expecting to continue an association with the Institute in the future in terms of my own professional development. Athletics, you've heard about. The pilot assessment, you'll see here, I'm reporting that I responded to the company Pearson, which is the agent, I'm on page 2 now of the report, on page 39. We've offered to undertake the pilot assessment in Algebra 2 for the reasons set out in the report. We haven't had a response yet from the DESE as to how they're going to react to that. Importantly, at 6, the revised elementary school report card has been issued to teachers, and they will be used this year. We still have further work to do on that in terms of regularizing the way in which we report progress on non-academic features of the report card. District determined measures. It's a requirement that we do provide, develop these. My intention, as Annex A indicates, is to decouple the work from the mandated requirement. We could simply say, what assessments should we be using in order to be in compliance with the state mandate? In some cases, we're already using tests, assessments, particularly in literacy and some in math, that will be appropriate, but we also have to have tests for all the other subjects. In some cases, they are available commercially. My own view is that there is no point in saying to teachers, these are the tests that we're going to use, without the teachers having full understanding of and confidence in the tests that we've chosen. And that therefore calls for a district-wide discussion about what makes for a good assessment. And you'll see that on the top of page 40, I've given an example there of some of the criteria that we might be using in order to determine whether an assessment is appropriate. Don't forget, down the line, teachers' impact on student learning is going to be assessed against these tests. And unless we are confident that the tests are valid and reliable, we cannot come to conclusions about teachers' impact on student learning. Curiously, at a meeting with the Superintendents Association executive recently, one of the senior officials at the DESE advised superintendents that it really wasn't very important whether the assessments were valid or reliable, because they were really intended to be used to assess the success of program. Now, if you're a teacher and you're going to have your impact on student learning assessed, you're going to want to know that the assessment is valid and reliable, not that it will be useful for assessing a program. So we're getting some very mixed messages from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education on this front. I was supposed to tell the state by the 18th of September what preliminary decisions we made about the assessments we would use. I have not responded to that. I've told the state that we're not ready to respond until we've done the kind of work we need to do. So we will do the work, but we will do it in a measured way that hopefully leaves teachers confident that they're part of the process of identifying the assessments that are going to be used in part to make judgments about their teaching effectiveness. Off my soapbox, the rest of the report is just your usual for information. Yes, we have one or two other kites flying at the moment, and Brian has reminded me. There's a copy for everybody. Maybe if you give people papers in the middle of a meeting, they read the papers rather than stop listening. So we'll teachers know that. Suzanne, Jane. We are launching formally the pilot part of the Aspen Family Portal, and we have here for you copies of a letter that's going out to parents, advising them of this pilot. It's a bit bitty in that we don't have a report card available for elementary at this stage. The emphasis there is going to be on web development. It'll be more full blown with the senior years. So that is in hand. Is there anything else I've forgotten, Brian? Don't believe so. So if you've got any questions, comments about the report or any other matters of concern or interest.
Dina?
Thank you, Deb. Thank you for finally getting us to the point where we're ready to pilot that. That has been a few years in the making, and I am confident that parents are really going to appreciate that. The teachers are patient with a learning curve that I'm sure the parents are going to have too, but I'm so grateful that that's finally coming to fruition.
But we've actually been very encouraged by the number of teachers who volunteered to participate.
There are 40 teachers, and actually every student at the middle school, I believe, Deb told me, every student will be impacted by at least one teacher, so that every parent of a middle schooler will have at least one of their 5 teachers participating.
Thank you, Mr. Farmer. Moving on to the subcommittee reports. First, policy subcommittee. Now, tonight, Suzanne, I think, and Mr. Farmer will share the policy subcommittee report. There are many first readings here, and I believe Mr. Farmer has said that most of them are technical changes. So I don't know if Suzanne or...
I can start and just lead it off. The first one's on page 61. It's the policy to prevent bullying. This policy, you can just see the changes are highlighted in yellow. And it's just an update to the law, and which requires us to include staff in the bullying policy. And we just kind of, on page 62, those people are kind of outlined in that first paragraph there. The other thing is we also included the responsibilities of the school committee with regard to the bullying policy. And I believe, Christopher Farmer, I don't think there's anything else.
No, that's it.
Okay. So we're looking for a first reading for this policy.
So we need a motion to approve the amendment to the bullying prevention policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
Oh, hold on. I would like to make a motion to approve the amendments to the bullying prevention policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
Could we have a second?
Second the motion.
Any discussion?
I have a question, Deb. Suzanne, and you just referenced it, on page 63 where it's talking about the school committee shall develop and adhere to and update a plan. Has that plan been developed?
Yes.
And is that separate from this?
It is separate from this, and we now need to make some amendments to that as well.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the second policy is the budget planning policy on page 68. This is just getting in alignment with our practice. This was just an older policy that basically didn't include how we go about the budget planning. You can just read, like number 1, we now include school councils, town officials, and representatives. Just, again, alignment with what we're currently doing.
Could we have a motion to approve the amendment to the budget planning policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013?
I'm going to make a motion to approve amendments to the budget planning policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
Could we have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
This next policy is on page 69. Is the revolving funds policy. Instead of just being types of funds, we specifically made this revolving funds. And there's just a list, and it's included but not limited to these specific revolving funds. And I believe the bottom is just, it was the other funds. Is that correct, Christopher? The scratched out portion.
But this didn't seem to make sense.
Yeah, so this is just kind of cleaning up that policy just to include revolving funds. That's it, really.
All right, we need a motion to approve the amendments to the revolving funds policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
I'll make a motion to approve amendments to the revolving funds policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? No? Unanimous?
Okay, this next one, I don't think I have a page for this one. It's the payment procedures, and I think, Christopher, you'll do a better job of describing this one than me if you
Well,
could.
the intention here is to make the policy more transparent, so it's clear that we are working through a purchase order system. That being the case, there are instances where we need to reimburse people because the purchase order system doesn't work. The previous policy referred to the committee will receive monthly lists. That's not your practice. We prepare a warrant on a weekly basis, and members of the finance committee sign off on it. consistent with some of your recent discussion, it says arrangements for alternate signatures may be approved by the school committee from time to time, which you have done. It also confirms that not just actual invoices, but all invoices are available for inspection by the school committee. So again, it's essentially trying to reflect your current practice.
We have a motion to approve amendments to the payment procedures policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
I'll make a motion to approve amendments to the payments procedures policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its first meeting on September 24th, 2013.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? No one's opposed. Thank you very much.
All right, the next policy is on page 72. It's a self-evaluation of school committee, sorry. This, again, is just in alignment with current practices. You'll see that the SMART goals are referred to in this as a amendment. It talks about our performance objectives of the committee. And down the bottom, we gave a date in June, I believe. And the results of the evaluation will guide us, not inform us, in the school committee's professional development direction. So again, it's just more alignment to current practice and the addition of the SMART goals.
We need a motion to approve amendments to the self-evaluation of the school committee policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
I'll make a motion to approve amendments to the self-evaluation of the school committee policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Linda. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous.
The next policy is on page 74. It's a student transportation in private vehicles. These amendments include drivers that are not age of 21 have certain clean driving licenses. It's also asking for people to provide evidence of insurance. We're including guardians in this 4C, and also the filing of such statements will be with the superintendent of schools. Now, these, if I believe Chris read, these are exceptions. These aren't, like, I remember talking about there being exceptions to people driving people to, I can't remember the example that you used. It was a student. Like the band, it was like a musical competition.
That was a band issue, but I have seen students out on the Byfield fields driving other students backwards and forwards. I mean, I think Brian would take the view it shouldn't happen at all, but I always think it's dangerous to say never because. There are sometimes exceptional circumstances, but his amendment would be ignore this and just put never in, and that's maybe something you should consider.
So those are the amendments to this one.
We need a motion to approve the amendments to the transportation of students in private vehicles policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
I'll make a motion to approve amendments to the transportation of students in private vehicles policy as a first reading as recommended by the policy subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that? Paul?
Brian, can you share with us why you would not be in favor of it?
As a general rule, if we are conducting a school activity and we are condoning something, generally it's with a school staff, if we are putting our students in someone's car that we have no clue about, I mean, we'll get a piece of paper that says, they've got the thresholds for the liability insurance, but we have no clue of the maintenance of that vehicle, the record of that driver. If, God forbid, anything does happen, it is a school-sanctioned event, which means we are liable. But our insurers will say that wasn't a school vehicle, so you're out of luck. So there will be some umbrella coverage that would cover us, but as a first recourse, it's the driver's insurance policy that is entirely maxed out. So if there are damages, again, death, any of that, it goes completely on the driver and the driver's record first, and then there's some umbrella coverage that would kick in. But our general liability policy won't cover it. We don't have auto coverage on our policies because we don't own any vehicles.
Did you?
I just have a follow-up to that. So, Brian, I just want to be very clear. You're talking about some umbrella coverage. And my real concern is I'm not convinced that the school's insurance provider will own up to each and every Susie, Mary, and Bob that drive vehicles that cause injuries. And that's one of my concerns that I raised in the subcommittee meeting. So I'm concerned about implementing a policy that the school's insurance company may not be party to.
Could I say my starting point was to improve the existing policy? I think Brian has come at it from a slightly different angle, and I respect his point of view. I mean, you could say it will not happen.
Dick, what is your question?
What about parents and guardians? Should there be a waiver? I can speak from my experiences where parents would go to, we'd be bused to a football, hockey, whatever, and then instead of going home with the rest of the team, the players went home with their parents, as opposed to riding home on the bus because the parents were going to go out to dinner or whatever. This gets in the way of that type of event in a big way. And can't we create a waiver for parents and guardians that if the child is, say we play a team up in New Hampshire on a Friday night and they want to stay up in New Hampshire and come home on a Sunday?
That's a totally different situation. We're talking about a situation where we have, for example, there was a student who was playing, a solo student playing in a competition and invited to play in a competition in Boston. And Sue Densmore was going with him as the only staff member. There were two people going. So I'd rather pay for a taxi to pay for Boston Shuttle to come get them and bring them down, and then it's at least under our policies because it's a contractor we hired versus either one of them driving. So something like that where, if the swim team flies, for lack of a better term, if that wouldn't fly, if the swim team goes off, the practices obviously won't be on campus. They're going to be at the YWCA in Newburyport. They're going to likely be in the 6 o'clock hour at night. It's not our responsibility. If that's a district-sanctioned event, we're saying the athletes have to get there. So is there some liability? There's probably someone could poke holes in that, but in general, we can't transport our students there. So parents have to get their students to the venue, and then they're free to pick them up. So I think those types of situations are different. It's the onesie twosies where 99% of the time we are providing the transportation, whether it's a 7D van or it's a 60-passenger student bus or a coach bus to go to camp.
In the case of the example of going up to New Hampshire after a game, essentially the students have been dismissed from school.
Okay.
At that point, they're in the hands of the family.
We understand, they want to go take them out to eat dinner and let the kids, that type of stuff.
As soon as they sign off, as soon as the parent takes the responsibility back, they're back in their parents' care.
That's my only question. Thank you.
Since we have here, securing a signed statement that parents and guardians to this effect, the filing of such statements with the superintendent, do we have that form already developed? So that's something that we would have to do afterwards. And do we know what? I'm just curious as to, because I think Paul raises some good issues. I mean, what exactly would be included in that form? I'm hoping it's not just Susie will be going with Mrs. Smith to X, Y, or Z.
Our attorney will draft that form. And our other attorney will review it.
Suzanne?
I just have a question now that Brian's here. So this is the policy that we already have, right?
Yes, what I tried to do was to tighten up the existing policy.
Right, so I just want to make that clear. This isn't like a new policy that we're making.
This was greatly improved over what it was. I
right,
would say that.
So Brian, that's my question to you. So this is better than what we have. And so I think that was how the policy committee kind of looked at it, like, okay, well, at least we have something that's a little bit better. Is it perfect? That's not for me to say. So I don't know if from my opinion, should we approve this policy in looking at this more deeply about the liability and answering some of Paul's questions about the insurance?
You could refer it back to the subcommittee for further consideration.
But in the meantime, should we approve this policy since this is more tight, for lack of a little better word? Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would suggest that we proceed with this policy as it is. It's a first reading. I would suggest we proceed with this because it is such a great improvement. And a policy, as obviously you know, can always be revisited. And I think that if we find that that is warranted, then we would do that. But since this is such a great improvement, I really think we need to proceed with this one. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I don't think we did a motion, did we?
We did.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we did. It was a
Right.
long time ago.
Okay,
All
thank
those
you.
in favor?
Yes.
That was the discussion. Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay.
You opposed, right? Yeah.
All right, Finance Subcommittee. Thank you very much, Suzanne. Thank you very much for your report. And as of this month, Linda Lukowski will be taking over as chair of the Policy Subcommittee. Finance Subcommittee. This may be a group effort, or at least a Jane.
How about, since I just learned this when I arrived, this can be a Mr. Forget effort?
Well, this was everybody learned this 5 minutes ago. But what we need to take up first are the two items that Dina requested we pull from the consent agenda. For the first one, it would be the treasurer's report, and the second one would be the revolving accounts report. So, Dina, you have some questions on those?
I do.
What page?
Where's the treasurer's?
21 is the treasurer's report.
Thank you.
I say 101.
21.
I think I read the minutes for the Finance Committee, and that didn't make this any clearer. So I guess my concern is, especially, where are we starting first? What page did you say, Brian?
21.
Annex 3, 21. You said the treasurer's report you had questions on?
1 second. Now I'm confused.
It's 21.
The summary's at 17, the minutes.
Right. I guess it's more towards the back. It's on page 75 is what I noted. With the adjusted budget summary.
Okay.
Where in looking at this budget summary, do you want to go through the rest of these first before we get to this, since I'm kind of out of order?
I mean, I can do whatever you want. I was going to answer the questions that you had about the treasurer's report.
Yeah, it wasn't the treasurer's report. I apologize. I guess I stated that. It's this adjusted budget summary.
Okay, now I have a procedural question, because the adjusted budget summary was not part of the consent agenda.
And I noted it wrong in my notes. That's my
Okay.
error.
So,
But do you want to approve
we
the
still
treasurer's
need
report?
to approve then the treasurer's report and the revolving accounts report. So could we have a motion to approve the treasurer's report, which is Annex 3, and the fiscal 14 revolving accounts, which is Annex 5?
I'll make a motion to do it separately or together? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve and file the treasurer's report of August 31st, 2013, and the revolving accounts to file and receive and file the September fiscal year 13 revolving accounts report as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee at its meeting on September 24, 2013.
Do we have thank you. Any discussion on those two?
I'm just not sure. On page 18, where it talks about FY14 year-to-date revolving accounts report, I don't know if there's a typo in there. I think there is, where it says 200,000. We anticipate spending 1,035,000, which should leave a balance of 200,000.
Go in the revolving report?
Page 18.
Page 18.
Page 18.
In the minutes of the Finance Committee. That was kind of my confusion too, Paul. I guess that's why I noted it that way, Deb,
That'd be
because I did
2,000.
it from these minutes.
Right.
Jane thinks it's right.
We are expecting a balance of 220,000. That is correct.
220?
Or it says 200, and the minutes say 220.
But the numbers up above suggest 2,000 in the sentence before it. I think.
Which sentence, Paul, are you
One that says, we anticipate spending a $1,035,000, which should leave a balance of 200,000. The sentence before it says, for a total of $1,033,000.
Yeah, it adds to 2,000.
Which would be a 2,000.
Okay, I
That's
see.
specifically about the circuit breaker.
Right.
Having a hard time finding where you are.
On page 2 of 18.
Number C, letter C,
Yeah.
line 4.
Okay. We anticipate spending which 200,000.
Circuit breaker is now being reimbursed at the full 75%, which means about another $50,000 for a total of $1,033,000. We anticipate spending $1,035,000, which should leave a balance of $200,000.
It's correct, but it's because we carried forward 200,000. So it's correct, but it's confusing. The math
just
doesn't
wanna
make
raise-
sense in the sentence. If that,
Yeah.
it's not a good number equation. It's not a good number problem. But it is accurate because we actually carried forward 220,000.
Way too many zeros, huh, Paul? Anything else? All those in favor? Opposed? No? Okay, thank you, unanimous. Now,
Now back to page.
now let's go back to, why don't we, is your question on one of the things on the list here? You have questions on things that we're going to be,
Yeah, I think it would be easiest if Brian just did his,
okay.
because it might answer some of my questions then. I apologize.
So each fall, excuse me, each fall we go through an adjusted budget. I will go through this in little detail as quickly as possible. If you have questions, please stop me. Again, the adjusted budget does not change any assumed revenues. It does not change any assumed assessments to the towns. All this does is reallocate funding that we had specifically in some lines we had designated as new spending. That's now reallocated correctly. Nothing has changed as far as the bottom line from the budget you approved in March and the towns approved in April, May, and now. Over page 75, you find, starting on page 76, an actual full budget document. Just for an example, if you go to page, if you go to page 11, I'm sorry, it's 11 of the budget. It's
Not numbered.
page 11 of the budget on the bottom. Sorry, the numbering schemes. You see in the line, the yellow line, it says new staff requests. That's the type, you'll notice if you look at FY14 final, there was $59,674 for Pine Grove School. That was for a new special ed teacher. You see that that line is blank in FY14 adjusted because that money has been reallocated correctly. If you go back one page, page 10, and you'll notice about a third of the way down in function 2310, teaching services, special education salaries, there's an increase in that line of $56,042. So that's the type of change that's occurring in this budget. Anything that was undesignated is now designated, as well as the larger change is we had, back to the original page on page 75 of the packet, we had over 30 hires. We started this year planning-wise with only a couple retirements, a couple non-renewals, and a couple other folks we know that were resigning. And at the end of the day, we had one of the busier years as far as hiring in the past several. So when you have that many hires, there are a lot of adjustments in where the money is. Last year, when we did a lot of our hiring, they ended up being teachers newer in their career, and they came in at a lower salary. still high-quality teachers. We always hire the best. I know Christopher and I have always had the discussion. We don't hire for the cheapest salary. We hire the best person for the job. This year, the best people for the job happened to be more expensive teachers. So there was a lot of shifting that went around, and you can see the movement. If you look in the budget, in the detail pages, you can see the movement between the lines. But it's primarily, you'll notice, outside of things that I've identified here, it's just salary lines where things have changed. So at Pine Grove School, I just detailed number 2 for you. That's 56,000, or sorry, shy of 60,000 was for a special ed teacher. That has now been reallocated. In the middle school, we changed our ELA and created a full-time. That was considered a new staff request. That was reallocated in Function 2310. At the high school, we had 155,000, and that was earmarked for an English teacher and a new school social worker. We did hire a school social worker. We had, I think you remember the discussion, we were looking for a dual certified special education and English teacher, kind of a rare breed to find. We had one of those on staff, and so that teacher was kind of reassigned, and so it ended up being a new English teacher that was hired. Under regional programming, we had 125,000 as new spending increases. Of that money, 28,400 was for Leadership Council. Those have been put back into the budget. You see those in the salary lines where they belong. And then we had earmarked 97,000 and change for our student population of 18 to 22-year-olds. I remember Dave McGee gave a presentation, had a lot of discussion about building a program in district for those students. That there are other programs we can send to. They're much higher cost, and it was our goal and hope to keep those students here in our community, and it's been a great response. I mean, they're doing a wonderful job, and I think it's one of the success stories of going into this year is how well that program is going, as well as a new hire for that program. To do that, there was no clean line to say there's an 18 to 22 program. So what ended up happening is there's 15,000 that was transferred to high school personnel line for an increase in an art teacher. 5,000 was to special ed transportation. 20,000 was to special ed supplies and materials, and 57,316 to special ed contracted services, which could be anything from a related therapy to an outside school program, a consultant coming in. Any of those would categorize there. Another increase after the budget was finalized, you approved the increase to full-time for what was a math specialist to be an interventionist at the middle school. So that was reflective of a 28,000 and change increase. TRTA column movement on page 19, you'll see that under 2310, it was 78,000. 50,000 of that was transferred into lines. You remember, people have to notify us by December 15th if they're going to make column movement, meaning they're going to be they're going to have more credits or more degrees. We budget everyone that says they're going to make column movement by September 1st. About 50,000 of that actually happened. 20 some odd thousand still remains. You can see the balance there. For curriculum and instruction, there are two, not transfers, but reallocating money for in-service and in-district subs, moving a little over 8,000 from actual in-service costs to substitutes, so that that money is shifted so that we can provide substitutes for those in-service teachers that are out of the classroom. And then we had a significant reduction in the number of ELL students. Did I just get closer? And so 13,000 is coming from ELL contracted services to MCAS remediation. Finally, I know we'll go to the next sheet. You remember last year we had end-of-year balances, and you voted those balances. One of the items was to prepay special ed tuition of roughly $250,000. As part of that, what that does is that $250,000 that was prepaid frees up that spending that does not have to happen in the current year. So now those funds are available. The goal was take a look. How do we look in the fall? The out-of-district line is actually looking better than it was in the spring. So we're confident, the Finance Subcommittee was confident that we can start allocating some of those funds to do some things that we need to do now and get a full year benefit out of them rather than waiting to see what happens. You saw another positive trend that our Medicare renewal, or Medicaid renewal supplement is going to be roughly $100,000 less than we anticipated. So there's another $100,000 balance that will be free to spend on some of those priorities that you had identified back in June. So two things we needed to do, and I transferred right in the budget. The theory here is if we adjust the budget in the coming soon here, but sooner than we think, when we start to look at an FY15 budget, if I adjust the budget, it's going to look like an automatic increase. If I adjust that budget line down $250,000 and reallocate the funds everywhere, automatically next year, we're going to have a $250,000 increase to fill that gap. So the only things I wanted to do a budget adjustment for were things that are going to stay. So one, you see the $60,000 that was moved to salary lines. Those were salary lines for things such as the approval of that interventionist at the middle school of almost $30,000, hirings that came in higher than the M5, M6 that we planned for. So that $60,000 is actually moved, and then also $15,000 to a new salary line for the PR specialist that you identified and approved to go. So in the budget on page, did I outline it? It's on page, should be page 20, 21. On page 21, you can see under section 9,000, special ed placements, you can see that line was reduced by 75,000. So the Finance Committee also looked at spending some of the additional money, and we can talk about that as a separate item because you need to vote to do some transfers. But as far as the budget adjustments, those are the majority, or that's outside of the other 30 hires and the changes that were needed there. Those are the net, that's the net sum of the changes from what you approved in March. Did that answer your questions, Dina? No.
Well, could we have a motion to approve the FY14 adjusted budget as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013?
So moved.
Second? Now, any discussion or questions?
Excuse me, let me just note this. Brian, I guess my confusion was we have two positions listed for the middle school, and I'm not quite seeing where the interventionist is. And I was looking at what we had approved before, which was from, when was this? March. Looking at the middle school line, and I would think, and at first I thought, I guess where is the interventionist in this budget currently?
You look on page 14.
Yep, that's what I'm looking at.
And about a third of the way down, you have the
2310
section,
Yep.
ELA math specialist salaries. And you see an increase of $62,827.
So that's those
Roughly,
two positions? Okay.
That's
right.
half-time for each of them, because they were both half-time positions when you approved this budget in March.
Okay, that answers the question. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussions? Paul?
Thank you. Brian, can you just give us an idea, building-wise, of the 30 new hires? Not with exactness, but just a general. I know Pine Grove went up 27 students or something.
Yep, there were no hires made because of that. I mean, they had a significant number of new registrations in that, thankfully, those were spread out across the school. We didn't have an influx of third graders or first graders. It was pretty evenly split. I would say more IAs, more instructional assistants than we usually have. I want to say there were, any help, Patty, 7 or 8 IAs, which we don't tend to turn those over. And I would say it's pretty even. There's a few at Newbury, a few at Salisbury. Oh, you have the list?
I have the list.
So,
Scroll down. It's all the new hires right here.
It's fairly evenly split. The biggest influx is at the high school. So it is pretty evenly split.
Thank
a
you.
handful at every building. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussions? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? No. Thank you. Unanimous. Projects to be funded by transfers?
Okay, so the page 77 of your packet, just a brief summary. Last year, top box says completed. We closed the revolving account. So with the balances we had, we closed revolving accounts of close to $125,000. We prepaid special ed tuition of $250. We bought iPads for pre-K and K teachers for this new gold assessment where momentarily. You put $10,000 into the OPEB liability trust fund, and an $18,000 project became a $30,000 project at Pine Grove thanks to asbestos. So all of those items were assumed in the budget. The only thing that has any net effect in FY14 is the prepay of $250,000. Next box down, you just approved a budget that takes 60 for hiring, 15 for the PR specialist, which leaves 175,000 of that balance that's available to spend. The finance subcommittee, and I'm speaking for them, please jump in if I'm saying anything wrong, agreed that it made sense to spend on the following items right now, totaling $81,500. We've had this discussion ongoing about retail and training these teachers, and is it 9? Is that the number, Kim? 9 teachers that that are taking the course and will be taken over the course of this year, and we'll be paying them at a per diem rate to take that course. Go Math, Christopher referenced that earlier, was so successful at Pine Grove last year and is now being implemented at all 5th grades at all 3 elementaries. Sublines, you approved a sub rate. I think $5,000 is nominal. It's a small token to say, okay, maybe there's going to be an impact. High school contracted services for the Chinese program, I think there was a report, that Middlebury College is an online program that we're doing now. All in, it was about $7,500 higher than the cost of having the 0.4 Chinese teacher here. So transferring for that. Still lots of talk about the website upgrade. If we're talking about a PR specialist, we need a website that can really celebrate the district. And I think the theme will be streamlined and more social media based. We have a rough estimate working with a company out of Winchester for $13,500. For the library, for this location, we've had several discussions about the multimedia presentations. This has become a professional development hub, whether it's the high school staff meeting or if it's a district-wide meeting. We have a very small single screen, and when there's 150 people sitting here, you can't see the screen, so it's roughly $10,000 to put projectors and screens in both corners. That would work well for the school committee as well. I think there's a whole host of purposes that would solve. Safety of reference materials, that one is still in discussion. That remains to be seen. The theory is we have extensive emergency preparedness planning. There's been a lot of press about other districts and what they're doing and putting into place, and I'm, as a parent, receiving things home. We have a lot of plans. But it's not very public because a lot of the protocols we believe are confidential. But there is some discussion about having a little bit more material in the hands of teachers. So we're having that debate. We actually met with the principals quickly, and there's some mixed feelings about putting these reference materials in their hands. So that remains to be seen. But if that transfer is done, that can be spent or not spent. It doesn't go anywhere. And then replacing snow blowers, because at each of our elementaries, the custodial staff is responsible for clearing the building, the sidewalks, and right around. This campus is completely contracted. So the towns do a great job of clearing, and they'll even jump up on the sidewalks every once in a while and try and clear as much as they can. But we have some old snow blowers. So there are 3 head custodians that's a well-spent $4,500 to make those 3 guys happy. So that's $81,500. I do have it detailed line by line, if you want to vote it line by line. You technically don't. I mean, it's within funds. The superintendent has the authority to make those transfers. So, and then the remaining list at the bottom is other priorities that you had identified, or we've had identified and talked about and approved back in June.
We need a motion to approve a list of projects to be funded through transfers within the general fund as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013.
May I say that? Oh, right. I make a motion to approve a list of projects to be funded through transfers within the general fund as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee at its meeting on September 24, 2013.
Could we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? No one's opposed. Thank you.
I say my assumption is that the Finance Subcommittee will keep looking at this issue. As and when you look at my report of the conference that I returned from last week, I mean, my biggest takeaway is just how far behind we are, a lot of districts, in terms of our implementation of technology in the district. And if we have two sizable chunks of funds available, I think one of the things that we need to do is to see whether there's real merit in some strategic funding of technology improvements to because, again, without going into a great deal of detail, it's very clear that once we have Wi-Fi access, we can personalize learning by using programs that differentiate according to the level of the student. It becomes available 24/7. It's not location dependent, and students tend to be engaged by the kind of programs that are available. I'm not a salesman. I'm not selling this now, but I think it's something that we need to look at very carefully. There's probably an opportunity this year with the volume of funds available that may not be there again. Thank you for listening. You want a budget development schedule?
Mm-hmm.
The subcommittee is recommending the budget development schedule. Should have a big D on page 78. It fits exactly what you've done in previous years with some dates adjusted as per the 2014 calendar. So you have a week of meetings with the schools, Saturday morning workshop, develop a budget, public hearing, final budget. We need to get it there by March 15th is the deadline, which is a weekend.
Could we have a motion to approve the FY15 budget development schedule as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013?
Make a motion to approve the FY15 budget development schedule as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee at its meeting on September 24, 2013.
Could we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that schedule?
I just want to note, Deb, that the budget workshop should be the 25th, not the 26th, unless we plan
Unless we're coming on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, I should have changed that.
Any other questions, comments on the schedule? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have a communication with the MASC. This, you received a letter, a draft in your packet, but there is an updated one that was put out in front of you on the table when you arrived.
The chair of the committee realised that we had put out the original document rather than the document as amended by the committee. So the amendments are highlighted in basically that's saying that if the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education is going to adopt regulations, it would be wise to make sure that we have the resources to implement what they want us to implement, and that they shouldn't approve changes until the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has a complete and coherent implementation plan.
Could we have a motion to approve a draft communication with the MASC as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee at its meeting on September 24th, 2013?
Motion to approve a draft communication with the MASC as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee,
meeting on September 24, 2013.
Could we have a second?
I'll second. Go ahead, you can answer.
Any questions or discussions
It's all yours.
regarding that draft?
Yes.
Tina?
This is not what I thought we were going to be doing, and it might be my misunderstanding of what our goal was. MASC actually is doing this, and if you looked at the delegate manual, that is what a lot of the resolutions that were approved last year dealt with, funding for adequacy study and all those things. So it might not be everything that we have listed in this letter, but it covers a large bulk of it, and they are putting that on the resolutions again for this year. So they are working at it. In fact, in the beginning of this, in Attorney, what is his name, Finnegan, in his report, he said, Resolution 5, that's the adequacy study. MASC has long sought an official determination of the costs necessary to provide an adequate education to all students, all this blah, blah, blah. This bill will not be heard until October 17th, so that is coming up again. So I guess what I would like to see us do instead of sending this to MASC is to come up with, to look at the actual list of unfunded mandates and to come up with examples within our district of how it is affecting us and giving it to our elected state officials. I think it would be more effective that way than trying to do this. MASC is already doing this. I think if Glenn got this letter, he'd say, yep, already on the docket. I would rather go in a slightly different direction. Just a suggestion.
Can I just say, I think this is different from the adequacy study. The adequacy study is about Chapter 70.
Yes.
This is about legislators passing legislation without funding associated with the legislation.
And that's a piece of it too, Christopher. That was only one piece of the resolutions. There were, I think, 6 of them that were passed last year that they are going to propose again this year, from what I've read. It covers more of those things. Like I said, it's not a direct correlation, but I just think that we would be more effective coming up with our own list and identifying how we as Triton is affected and getting that to our elected state officials than sending this to MASC, because they're just going to say, yeah, well, we're doing that. They're trying to do that anyway.
I think what you said is a good idea about funding, but I don't see any reason to not send this. If everybody approves the letter itself, I don't see any reason to not send it. The work's been done writing it. I think what you're saying could be very much more beneficial, but it's a separate.
I guess my point is we're going to look silly sending this when they've already been working on this. We look like we don't know what our own association is doing. Just a thought.
Does anyone else have any comments, suggestions? Jane?
Well, I plead ignorance here. And so based on, Dina, you always have a tremendous wealth of information, way more than I. I don't know about how other committee members feel, but just listening to what you said, well, for one thing, I don't want us to appear foolish. When Mr. Farmer presented this to us initially, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've read lately. So, absent appearing foolish, I still totally support this.
Jane, I don't want anybody to get the idea that I do not think that this is a well-written letter or that it doesn't address some of our concerns.
Right.
My concern is sending this and them looking at us going, but we're already doing that. It makes us look like we're not paying attention.
Ooh.
Can I just say, I'm sorry to press back. I don't know that the MSC is doing all this. I don't know that they are after the DSE about the fact that we're implementing things without a comprehensive implementation plan. I don't think that is on the agenda. The audience for this is not just the MASC. When I showed it to the president of the TRTA, her response was, wow, exclamation mark.
Yes.
And I think
It is a very good letter.
I think people need to know that you are batting for them and appreciate the difficulty of that. So while nominally it's an MASC target, that there's a community audience here where you will be saying enough is enough. So, I mean, I respect the MSC. It's a great organization. I like the people who lead it. But I think that this is taking just a slightly different slant. I mean, this is saying don't pass legislation without funding attached to it.
Right, but that's my point, Christopher, is that should be going to our elected state officials. They're the ones that will be passing the legislation, not MASC. They're trying to advocate on our behalf so that they aren't putting these unfunded mandates on us. But I guess I'm just asking for a more direct line. Not that I'm not in support of this. I think this is great, but I just want us to understand that, well, whatever.
Paul?
Yeah, just very quickly, I think we can make a compromise here and implement what Dina wants. Why can't we modify this letter and start out by saying, in furtherance of what we seek below, we are going to analyze how this is affecting us locally, blah, 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 what Dina had just said. So I think we could actually hit both and include the letter as written, and maybe if Dina wants to take on an introductory paragraph. Because when they see that is going to be different, I think, Dina, that we as a group are trying to look and see how it's affecting us and how it's affecting what we do here.
No argument there. I just think that, we
I agree with
have
what
a
you said.
short length of time to get this done because the conference is next month.
Suzanne?
I guess I'm in agreement with Paul, but also you could say that it's a letter of support with them as well. I mean, as we're behind them, we're officially making that statement. And if we add what Paul just said to what you think, I think that would be a more comprehensive. And I do think you're right. We do need to follow this up and say with our own legislators. But for now, I think this is a good document. It's very well written.
It is.
If we introduce what Paul just said, I think that'd had more meat behind it, I think,
Linda?
Why couldn't you send it to both?
Point, that's what they're saying. So if we modify it so that it touches on both points.
I just think in the past years we have asked our constituents to send letters to people in support so that people can say, look, we have this letter from our constituents. So I look at that way. I look at this letter as being something that MASC could say, look, this is what's happening. This is evidence that MASC could use while they're doing their lobbying. That's how I look at this. It never occurred to me that we would look anything but concerned. Aware. I never. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if they have letters from 50 school districts or 100 school districts saying this kind of thing, that's support for their lobbying.
I'm wondering if in the first paragraph we added the word continue, which would recognize the work that's already being done and would therefore be seen as being in support of existing action on the part of the association.
So you're suggesting, Christopher, I'm sorry, what?
Insert continue.
Well, if
Where do you want to insert that?
The purpose of this communication is to request that the MASC, by resolution, continues to make.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that would...
Sure.
And then to follow up on what Dina's saying, then later we could drill down and find out what are the specific unfunded mandates that affect us, attach this, and then form another letter with those specific unfunded mandates.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
And then shoot them off to the politicians after, so this gets to the conference in time, and then we follow up with a drill down statement.
So, so Mr. Farmer, we need to approve this letter with that change in it. So, Mr. Farmer, do you want to read what you have?
Well, the second sentence would read, the purpose of this communication is to request that the MASC, by a resolution, continues to make formal representations to appropriate members of the General Court, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, and the Commission of Elementary and Secondary Education with a view to stemming the tide of unmanageable change. The Board of Education is currently, there's a consultation document out on the park assessment, and they will make a decision on that in November. And there need to be voices at the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, pointing out the difficulties associated with their present intentions.
Could we have a motion to approve the amended draft communication with the MASC as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee? It's meeting on September 24th, 2013.
Are we having a discussion again?
Yes,
Okay.
after we get the motion, yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended draft communication with the MASC as recommended by the Finance Subcommittee
We have a second?
on
Second.
September 24th.
Any discussion on the amended draft communication?
What Paul said, I can't remember how he phrased it, but it was almost like a little, I can't remember exactly what you said.
All I said was I just thought we should introduce the letter by the point that Dina makes about what we're trying to do at the local level and make them aware that we're actually taking steps to establish to them and present evidence later that this is really affecting us and give them numbers and give them how it's affecting our budget.
I think that's a great idea, but I think, again, if we want this letter to go before the conference.
I'm just answering her, that's all.
Okay.
No, I just like you said something that sounded really eloquent, so I liked it, and I just
I-
thought I thought it might be
Completely,
right.
I completely agree with Dina as to that.
Mhm.
But that's a project that's going to take a little bit of time.
Mhm.
And in all fairness, I don't think we can get that done.
But
maybe
should we
quite
state that we're
quickly.
considering doing that? That's what I'm asking.
No, I'm not saying, I think we
no,
should
no,
do
in
it.
the letter, should we state that we're considering doing that, and this is what we're going to do? We haven't obviously done it yet, but in the letter, that's what I'm just asking because you brought it up, Dino brought it up, but we can just put on continues and we'll just go our merry way. There we go.
Is any,
I'm good.
is there any more discussion on the draft letter as amended by Mr. Farmer, adding continuing? All right, all those in favor of sending the amended letter? Opposed to sending the amended letter? Okay. The amended letter may be sent. Thank you.
I want to see that.
Personnel and Negotiations Subcommittee.
You should all have a copy of the September 12th minutes. Basically, we just met in open session to approve the minutes from August 29th and then entered into executive session to begin negotiations with the TRTA. We'll be meeting with them again tomorrow to continue negotiations, and we will begin negotiations with the TRIAA, the aides, on October 30th. So we have meetings scheduled, but we'll keep you posted as we move along. That's it.
Any questions regarding the PNN? Paul, did you want to say something?
After this.
After this, could I have a motion to adjourn?
No, not that.
Oh, no?
No, I just have a quick question.
Oh.
Madam Chair, I received a letter from Bob Snow addressed to you about the FY14 Rowley assessment. I know you were in tune on this, Brian, that deals with the minimum local contribution. I'm just wondering how we responded to Chairman Snow.
Minimum local contribution, that was an issue that, I don't know how much you want to go into. I mean, we talked about that, and that was answered several months ago.
So there's a draft that I sent to Christopher and Deb, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure it got mailed yet, and I actually emailed you both at the beginning of this meeting as I was thinking of that.
Okay, well, if it's not been addressed yet, that's fine.
It's being drafted, but it's basically reiterating in simplified terms the discussions we had about there were 5 potential scenarios, and option 5 played out. But it was never documented to the town, so it's basically a letter just documenting that.
Okay. Thank
as
you.
he asks, is it going to be made up next year? And yes, it will be, just by default. So
And just so that you know, Brian has been in touch with all 3 towns regarding this
Yeah.
numerous times.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Thank you.